Tēnā koutou katoa, no mai haere mai. We have been chatting about something that's landing really well in the Mobilise workshop, so we thought would be worth unpacking here today. Kia ora, Joe. Always nice to have you here. We spend a lot of time together these days, right?
Yeah, we do. Kia ora, Jess. Nice to see you.
So there's a three-step framework that we're using in the Mobilise workshops that's helping bring this to life and really resonating with people that I thought it would be worth us sharing today, particularly the impacts that's having for the leaders that we have in the room. So I thought probably a good place to start is explaining what that three-step framework
Mm.
is, and I know that you do that quite beautifully.
Cool. So yeah, the three questions, really, which we think are really fundamental to leadership, but particularly inclusive leadership. And tangata whenua Māori have been asking and answering these questions for hundreds of years, with real resonance. And the three questions, and I think really important to acknowledge, that these questions are really important to be asked in this order. Ko wai o, who am I? What is my story? What are all the things in my life and my career, that have shaped and impacted my view of the world, my value set, the way that I respond to things? So, really getting that sense of self and developing this grounded confidence in your own identity, which then positions you really well for this next question, ko wai koe, who are you? How might I understand that other people are having a different lived experience to me, that are seeing the world in a different way, that have different values, that have a different cultural mindset and practices. And asking that first question really allows you to be, when you get comfortable in your own skin, to be more comfortable with difference, to be more comfortable with other people's perspectives and being open to that. And then the third question, ko wai tātou, who are we all together? How do we actually bring all of these beautiful differences that we have in our communities and our workplaces together, so that everyone can thrive and really belong and bring themselves to work and really drive all of the business benefits of having a diverse workplace and an inclusive culture where you're going to drive more higher innovation and productivity and business outcomes. So yeah, the three questions, are, I think, fundamental to leadership and particularly inclusive leadership.
Yeah. And I mean, we do this at a part of the workshop where we've already kind of set the context and the business case and why this is important, why it matters. We've opened up space for people to ask the tricky questions or the things that have been on their mind or just the stuff they hear out there in the wider community that kind of makes them think, oh God, what's important now? What should we be doing in this space? And then this is the really practical bit, which I love seeing the way that a lot of the leaders in the room light up, particularly when we do that first question, 4YO, who are you? Because for many leaders, they've never actually dug into this. And when we talk about leadership brand and the experiences you've had that have shaped who you are and the way you see the world, people get quite animated, eh? And
Mm.
they love doing that exercise. And I think to your point, it puts us in a really good position when we start understanding who we are. We develop that grounded confidence to not just be able to lead authentically, but to also be really secure and stable in our own
Mm.
skin, which I think when you look at people that have an issue with difference, so people that see it as a threat, often that's because they are not stable in their own skin. They're not comfortable in who they are. They haven't done any of that digging and that groundwork as to who am I and what has shaped my experience and made me the person and the leader that I am today. And I love seeing leaders grow in that confidence because it
Mm.
then perfectly sets them up for that next question. For like Quay, who are you? Who are other people? And I think one of the aha moments that many of leaders have when we have this conversation is, oh, okay. So I see the world through my own eyes. So I'm having my experience, and I assume that's everybody's experience. And then when we do Kauai Kwe and we start to understand and corridor around the experiences of others, particularly underrepresented groups, there's almost these light bulbs that's like, oh, wow, I never knew that that group experienced the world or the workplace that way because I never
Mm.
have. And I
Mm.
think what that does is it kind of gives leaders this opportunity to go, well, what else am I not seeing? What else am I not understanding? And how do I get alongside other people that don't look and sound like me, to understand what their experience is? Because clearly it's different to my own.
Yeah, the core queer is such a a vital part of the of this framework, isn't it? Because it opens people's awareness to other people's experiences, and so the where the participants in the workshops that we're running are getting to is, I might be in a meeting and walk out of that meeting thinking that went really well. And we got to our action points and we progressed the project that we're delivering or whatever it was. And other people had a completely different experience within that meeting. They might have been spoken over, or they might have really felt unseen and unheard within that environment. And so we work really hard in that section of the framework to help leaders to raise their antennae to actually what are the power dynamics that are happening around our decision-making tables within the organizations that we're working with. And I think that's really powerful when they reflect back on that, to go, okay, well, I've tried that out in the wild and I've really raised my observation into those power dynamics, and actually I have a different perspective on that. And then that allows them to adapt the way that they're running meetings, the way that they're running their one-on-one conversations with their people, with that greater understanding. And my observation as well is it comes as a bit of a relief in a way to leaders when we reposition leadership away from you need to have all of the answers, you need to be chairing all of the meetings, you need to be coming up with all of the ideas, you need to be setting all of the strategic direction, to actually your role is to create an environment and space for others to be heard, to be seen, to put forward their ideas, to challenge. And you don't need to be the loudest voice anymore. You can actually sit back, create the environment where all of that beautiful diversity and difference can come to life to make great decisions. And you can see the leaders kind of relax into that space rather than this feeling, this pressure that because I'm in the maybe the most senior leader position, or it's all on me to be really leading and driving and shaping all of the conversations and being the loudest person in the room all the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've loved seeing that.
Yeah, 100%. And it really speaks to that curiosity aspect of
Mm.
great leadership. How do I remain curious to other people's experience, to things that I can learn, to collaborating around an idea and not, like you say, not having to be the one that says this is the direction we're traveling, this is where we're going. And that brings us nicely on to the third part, which I think just wraps that up so nicely. Ko Waitato, who are we all together, is such an opportunity to this piece that we're often talking around moving from division to unity. So rather us and them, this is me and this is other people that are not me. It's who are we all together and how do we all have differences, be in the same space in a way that works for everyone. So that inclusive culture piece. And this is the bit where we often get practical. We set people pull their action plan together and the things that they're going to do when they leave the room around what this means for them. But I think when we think about Ko Tato, that's Mobilise in its essence. It's uniting everyone around a common goal. It's deciding who are we all going to be together in this team, in this workplace, in this community, when we're all very different. And I think that can be a really powerful way for, when we've gotten leaders on that journey to then go, right, what does it mean going forward? And how do we navigate, particularly the world as it is at the moment, right? And our external environment around difference and tolerance towards difference. How does that, as a leader, I role model in this space, and I'm responsible for the culture of my team. So how do I make sure that that's an inclusive one?
Yeah, there's really great energy in the workshops around this section of the workshop because you get to the part where you're asking leaders to have the courage to take action. Like what, challenging to say, well, what are you willing to do differently? What are the things which you're prepared to go straight back into the workplace and start to think differently about, to lead differently about? And there's lots of writing down on the action plans around those things, and to be accountable to your peers and to yourself around the changes that you're wanting to make to be a more inclusive leader, to create these environments where everyone can kind of thrive and succeed. So that's when it wraps up nicely, isn't it? Where we kind of work through those fundamental questions around ko wai o, ko wai koe, and then the ko wai tato is okay. Let's get serious. Let's get real around what change you're willing and have the courage to make back in your workplace and commit to. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, and it's been awesome seeing the impact of those conversations. And often the leaders that are sticking around at the end. So the workshop is finished and wrapped up, and we've got people that we're pretty much having to kick out of the room because everything
Yeah.
is closing down and wrapping up, but they're still wanting to talk about, once you've sparked this corridor, I think it's one that people feel really keen to continue. And I think, that's been one of the things for me that I've been most impressed with is how leaders have engaged with this, and then how it's kind of lit a spark really within them for wanting to
Mm,
do more in this space. Now they've opened the can of worms.
mm.
So yeah, it's an absolute pleasure. And if you're interested in finding out more about the Mobilise program, head to the website. Joe and I would love to chat with you more about not just this framework, but the whole Mobilise workshops that we're rolling out across the Motu.